The boy was on his knees in the mud. Rain was hammering his back so hard it felt like fists. Blood was running from his right palm, mixing with the brown water pooling around his legs. He had not eaten all day. He had 150 naira in his pocket. His shirt had 3 holes in it. And he was fixing a tire for a woman he had never seen before in his life. The jack slipped. The car dropped 2 inches. The woman screamed. Chidi caught the frame with both hands, the rusted metal biting into his cut palm, and he pushed. He pushed with everything his thin body had. His arms were shaking. His teeth were clenched so tight his jaw hurt. But he held that car up because his blind grandmother once told him something he carried in his chest like a heartbeat. She said, "Chidi, kindness is the only wealth a poor man can carry." When it was done, the woman tried to give him money. A thick bundle of naira notes. More money than Chidi had ever seen. He looked at that money the way a starving man looks at food. Then he shook his head and walked away into the rain. But who was this boy? Why would someone with nothing refuse the one thing he needed most? And who was the woman watching him disappear, with tears running down her face that had nothing to do with the storm? Before we go any further, smash that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and what time it is. Tell me, have you ever helped a stranger and expected nothing in return? Let me know. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. Chidi Okafor was 18 years old. He lived in Ajagunal, one of the poorest neighborhoods in Lagos. The roads were cracked open like old wounds. The gutters ran green with dirty water. Houses were stacked together like boxes. Zinc roofs, rotting wood, walls so thin you could hear your neighbor's prayers at night. In a tiny one-room house that smelled like damp concrete and kerosene smoke, Chidi lived with his blind grandmother. The room was so small that when he stretched his arms, his fingertips almost touched both walls. The roof leaked in 3 places. They had 1 mattress, 1 kerosene stove, 1 bucket, and 1 old wooden stool. That was everything they owned. Chidi's mother had died of typhoid when he was 12. She could not afford the hospital, so she lay on that same mattress for 6 days, burning with fever, holding Chidi's hand, getting weaker until she was not holding it anymore. He was sitting right beside her when she stopped breathing. His father had left before he was born. No name, no face, no memory, just an empty space where a father should have been. All Chidi had was his grandmother. A woman whose eyes saw nothing but whose heart saw everything. She could tell when he was sad by the sound of his footsteps. She could tell when he was lying by the way his voice went up at the end of a sentence. Chidi had been a brilliant student. His teacher once told the class, "This boy will become an engineer one day." But in SS2, the money ran out. School fees, books, uniforms, all gone. So Chidi dropped out. Not because he was stupid. Because poverty locked the door and swallowed the key. Every morning, Chidi woke before the sun, tucked the blanket around his grandmother, whispered a prayer, and walked 40 minutes to Mile 2 Market. No Okada. No Danfo. He walked because he could not afford to ride. At the market, he pushed wheelbarrows for traders, bags of rice, crates of tomatoes, sacks of cement. On a good day, 500 naira. On a terrible day, 150. Not enough to buy a plate of rice. Let me tell you about one specific day. A Wednesday. The sun was punishing. Chidi had been loading 50-kilogram bags of gari for a trader named Alhaji Musa. His arms were burning. His back was screaming. He was on his last load when Emeka, a big loud boy who ran the wheelbarrow boys like a gang leader, walked up behind Chidi and kicked the wheelbarrow. Just kicked it. For fun. The bag split open on the ground. 50 kilograms of gari, spreading across the dirty market floor. Alhaji Musa came running. "You will pay for this bag." Chidi's voice was shaking. "Sir, someone kicked. I don't care. You were carrying it. You pay." The trader took every naira Chidi earned that day. Then he walked away. Chidi stood in the hot sun. 0 naira. 12 hours of work. 0. His grandmother was at home, waiting for dinner. He knelt down and started scooping gari off the ground with his bare hands. Not to sell, just to bring something home for her to eat. A passing woman shook her head. This Lagos will finish all of us. Chidi said nothing. He just kept scooping. The other boys called him Quiet Boy because he never fought back. One younger boy once asked, "Why don't you fight Emeka?" Chidi looked at him with tired eyes and said, "Fighting him won't put food on my grandmother's table tonight." The boys laughed. The younger one did not. Now let me take you to the evening that changed everything. Thursday. The angry kind of rain, the kind that floods streets and turns gutters into rivers. After 12 hours in it, Chidi had earned 150 naira. He was walking home. Soaking. Starving. The streets were dark because Nipa took the light. The road near Oshodi was almost empty. Then he saw it. A black SUV. Hazard lights blinking. One back tire completely flat. And standing beside the car, struggling with an umbrella the wind kept destroying, was a well-dressed woman. Gold bracelet catching the orange light. But her face showed something money cannot fix. Fear. A man walked past. She called out, "Please, my tire is flat. I will pay." He smiled. 50,000 naira, madam. Her eyes went wide. He shrugged and kept walking. Another demanded 30,000. A third said something that made the woman step back in fear. He laughed and walked away. Chidi's body was begging him to go home. But his grandmother's voice was louder. Kindness is not something you do when it is easy. Kindness is what you do when it costs you something. "Good evening, Ma. I can help you change the tire." She looked at him, thin, soaking, clothes torn. "How much?" Chidi shook his head. "Nothing, Ma. Just open the boot." The jack was heavier than expected. The bolts were rusted. Rain poured into his eyes. The first bolt fought him. The second was worse. He leaned his whole body weight into the wrench. He positioned the jack and pumped. The car rose. 1 inch, 2, 3. Then the jack shifted in the mud. The car dropped. The woman screamed. Chidi caught the frame, and the rusted bolt edge sliced across his right palm. The pain was instant. Sharp. Blood came fast, mixing with rain and mud. The woman gasped. "You are bleeding. Please stop." Chidi tore a strip from his shirt, wrapped his palm, and kept working. He repositioned the jack, braced it with his knee, pumped again. Every bolt he tightened sent a shock of pain up his arm. He tightened them anyway, one by one, until the job was done. The woman pulled out a thick bundle of naira notes. "Please take this." Chidi looked at the money. He saw how thick it was. He thought about his grandmother waiting for food. His hand actually moved toward it, 2 inches, before he stopped. "No, Ma. My grandmother taught me that kindness is the only wealth a poor man can carry. If I take your money, it was not kindness. It was business." The woman's hand dropped. Something cracked open inside her. "What is your name?" Her voice was shaking. "Chidi. Chidi Okafor." She took his neighbor's phone number with trembling fingers. Then she watched him walk away into the rain, limping, holding his bleeding hand against his chest. He did not look back. Her name was Mrs. Folake Ademola, founder of Ademola Construction, one of the biggest construction companies in Nigeria. Bridges across the Niger. Towers in Abuja. 3,000 employees. Worth billions. But that night she sat in her car for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, crying. Because a boy who had nothing had given her the only things he had, his time, his strength, his blood, and wanted nothing in return. Here is the secret Folake carried. She grew up in Mushin. Poor. Very poor. The kind of poor where your mother boils water and calls it soup so you drink something warm before bed. When she was 13, she found a wallet with more money than her mother earned in a year on a Danfo bus. She returned every kobo. That man paid her school fees through university. One act of honesty opened every door that followed. She had been looking for someone like Chidi for 20 years. 2 weeks passed. Every evening after work, Chidi stopped at Broda Tun's door. "Has anyone called?" Every evening. Nothing. On the 8th night, Chidi sat by the window until 2 in the morning, watching every car that passed, looking for a black SUV. It never came. "She forgot me," he whispered. "I am nobody." Now let me pause here and ask you something. If you were Chidi right now, tired, hungry, forgotten, would you still believe that doing the right thing matters? Or would you feel like the world cheated you? Tell me in the comments. Because what happens next will shock you. Then his grandmother got sick. The cough turned to fever. The fever turned to collapse. Chidi came home from the market and found her on the concrete floor. She had tried to get up and fallen. Too weak to call for help. "Mama!" He lifted her onto the mattress. She weighed almost nothing. It scared him. He spent everything at the chemist. Nothing worked. The chemist told him, "She needs a hospital. Real for treatment. These small drugs cannot touch what she has." Chidi ran to Tund. "The woman, has she called?" Tund could not look at him. "Chidi, I changed my SIM card. The old number is gone." Emeka found Chidi outside his house that evening. Still waiting for that rich woman? He laughed. Rich people do not come to Ajagunal. They do not remember people like us. Whatever she promised, forget it. That night, Chidi cried. Not quiet tears. He sat on the floor of that small room, holding the torn strip of shirt he had used to bandage his hand that night in the rain. It still had the dried blood on it, stiff and brown, and he sobbed so hard his body shook. He cried for his mother who died because they could not afford a hospital. He cried for his grandmother dying the same way. He cried because he did the right thing and it did not matter. He had bled for a stranger, and the world had given him nothing in return. The next morning, he pulled his grandmother's gold earring from under the mattress. The last thing from his grandfather. She touched it every day. "When I hold it," she once said, "I can feel him sitting beside me." Chidi held it in his palm, closed his fist, and whispered, "Forgive me, Mama." He would sell it today. He put the earring in his pocket and reached for the door. Then he heard it. A car engine. Something heavy. Something expensive. He stepped outside and saw a white vehicle pulling into Ajagunal. On the side, in blue letters, Ademola Construction. The compound froze. Doors opened. Children stopped. 2 men in clean shirts stepped out. "We are looking for Chidi Okafor." Chidi could not move. "I am Chidi. Mrs. Ademola has been looking for you for 2 weeks. When the number stopped working, she hired investigators. She sent people to every market asking about a boy named Chidi who pushes wheelbarrows. She confirmed everything. We are here to take you and your grandmother to her. Right now." Chidi's hand went to his pocket. He felt the earring. His grandmother would not have to lose it. His knees hit the dirt and he cried, deep, body-shaking sobs. 2 weeks of fear. 2 weeks of watching her suffer. 2 weeks of believing he was forgotten. And now this. They took his grandmother to a private hospital. Real doctors. Real medicine. Severe pneumonia. Fully treatable. She would recover. Then they took Chidi to Mrs. Ademola's glass office in Victoria Island. She walked to him, took both his hands, and turned his scarred palm upward. She ran her thumb across the cut. "This scar is worth more than every building I have ever built. Because this scar is proof that character still exists." Then she told him the plan. Full engineering scholarship. Furnished apartment. Monthly stipend. A caretaker for his grandmother. Medical checkups for life. "But I have one condition. When you graduate, you come back. You find boys like you, brilliant but trapped. You become the door for them." Then she told him her story. How she grew up in Mushin. How she sold pure water in the sun. How she found a wallet on a Danfo bus and returned every kobo. How that man paid her school fees through university. Then she tried to tell Chidi what that man said before he died, and her voice broke. She stopped talking. She turned toward the window. The CEO of a billionaire company stood there with her back to an 18-year-old boy from Ajagunal, pressing her fingers against her eyes, trying to compose herself. When she turned back, the mask was gone. She was not a CEO anymore. She was the 13-year-old girl from Mushin who sold pure water in the sun. He said, "Folake, I did not help you because you were poor. I helped you because you were honest when honesty cost you everything. Find someone like that. That is how the chain stays alive." She looked at Chidi. "I searched for 20 years. Not for intelligence. Not for ambition. For character under pressure. And then you appeared. Bleeding in the rain. Refusing my money. You are the next link in a chain that saved my life." Chidi walked into his grandmother's hospital room, barely able to see through his tears. He sat down beside her bed. He took her hand. The room was quiet, just the beeping of machines and the soft drip of the four. She felt the tears falling on her fingers before he said a single word. "Chidi." Her voice was weak, but her grip was strong. "Why are you crying? Tell me." "Mama." His voice broke. He tried again. "Mama, I have news." And he told her everything. The scholarship. The apartment. The stipend. The caretaker. Everything. He told her slowly, because his voice kept failing him, and because he wanted her to hear every word. His grandmother did not speak for a long time. The silence stretched out. Chidi held her hand and waited. Then, slowly, her blind eyes filled with tears. Not the way young people cry. The way old people cry when something they prayed for in the dark, year after year, so many times they lost count, finally arrives. She cried like someone who had stopped believing the morning would come and then felt sunlight on her face. She reached up and touched Chidi's face. She felt his cheeks, his forehead, the bridge of his nose, his jaw. She traced every feature with her fingers the way she had done since he was a baby, because her fingers were her eyes, and she wanted to see her grandson in this moment. Then she said something that broke Chidi completely. "Your mother held my hand the night before she died. The fever had taken almost everything from her. But she squeezed my fingers and she said, 'Mama, Chidi is going to be the one. He is going to break this curse of poverty. Promise me you will keep him kind. Promise me you will not let this world make him hard.' I promised her, Chidi. Every day since she died, I have kept that promise. When there was no food, I kept you kind. When there was no money, I kept you kind. When the world took everything from us, I made sure it could not take the one thing that mattered. And now look. Look at what your kindness has done." Chidi put his head on his grandmother's chest and cried the way he had not cried since his mother died. He cried for 6 years of walking in the rain. For 6 years of being mocked and pushed and treated like nothing. He cried because his mother was right. He cried because his grandmother had kept her promise. He cried because one night in the rain, everything changed. The day they left Ajagunal, the whole compound came out. Neighbors who had ignored him for years. Traders who had cheated him. Women who had gossiped about him. They lined the narrow road and watched as Chidi gently helped his blind grandmother into the company vehicle. Some were crying. Some were cheering. Some just stood there with their hands over their mouths. Emeka pushed through the crowd. His face was different. The arrogance was gone. He grabbed Chidi's hand and held it tight. "Chidi, I am sorry. For the wheelbarrow. For the names. For everything." Chidi looked at him, this boy who had made his life miserable, and said, "There is nothing to forgive, Broda. But my grandmother told me something I want you to hear. She said, 'The world will try to make you hard. Do not let it. That is all I ask of you.'" University was not easy. The first week, Chidi sat in a lecture hall surrounded by students who had laptops and textbooks and parents who called them every evening. He had a second-hand notebook and a pen. A classmate looked at his clothes and whispered to a friend, "Is this one lost?" Chidi heard it. He said nothing. He just opened his notebook and started writing. By the end of the first semester, that same classmate was asking Chidi to explain the assignments. By the end of the first year, the professors knew his name. By the final year, everyone did. Chidi graduated top of his class. Mrs. Ademola sat in the front row. Beside her, a blind woman in a beautiful white dress, wearing a gold earring she never had to sell, crying tears of pride she could not see but everyone in that auditorium could feel. Today, Chidi works at a Demila construction. But every Saturday he goes to Ajagunal and runs a free training workshop for boys like him. He calls it Grandma's Wheelbarrow. Because, as he tells every new boy, my grandmother could not see, but she taught me to see what really matters. Mrs. Ademila asked him once, do you ever regret refusing the money? Chidi smiled. If I had taken it, I would have eaten for one night. But because I refused, my grandmother and I will eat for the rest of our lives. And one day, when I find a boy bleeding in the rain for a stranger, I will know exactly what to do. Because that is how the chain stays alive. One act of kindness on your worst day can open a door that money never could. Do not let the world make you hard. Your character is the only thing no one can take from you. If this story touched your heart, smash that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button. Share this video with someone who needs it. Drop a comment. What lesson hit you the hardest? Was it Chidi's sacrifice? His grandmother's promise? Mrs. Ademila's chain? Or Emika's apology? Tell me. And remember, your situation is not your final destination. Keep your character. Keep your kindness. See you in the next story.